Welcome to College Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Anthony Epstein, pathologist behind Epstein-Barr virus find, dies at 102. Politicians call for changes to unfair HECS repayment system. Seizing Russia's frozen $300 billion is legal, urgent and right. Even voters in independent-minded Maine are taking sides in a polarized nation. U.S. to confront Trump-driven political turmoil at the Munich Security Conference. Anthony Epstein, pathologist behind Epstein-Barr virus find, dies at 102. Washington Post. British pathologist Anthony Epstein has died at the age of 102, leaving a legacy of groundbreaking scientific research into the ultra-common Epstein-Barr virus. Epstein's work in the 1960s to isolate the virus set the foundation for extensive studies into viral and biological triggers for various cancers, as well as potential links to diseases including multiple sclerosis, lupus and long COVID. The research later expanded to detect other cancer-causing viruses such as human papillomavirus, HPV. Epstein-Barr, unlike HPV, has no vaccine. The virus is believed to be present in over 90% of the world's population. Epstein-Barr's prevalence makes it difficult for researchers to prove direct cause and effect, but it has become invaluable in cancer studies by showing its effect on healthy cells and tissue. Epstein had been frustrated by the lack of a vaccine for the virus, but trials for a vaccine began in 2022. Epstein's work on the virus began when he attended a lecture on childhood tumors in Africa, and his subsequent research led to the discovery of the virus. Politicians call for changes to unfair HECS repayment system. ABC. Politicians in Australia are calling for an overhaul of the student loan repayment system, arguing that it is unfair. Under the current system, repayments are taken from every payslip, but the overall debt does not change until after a tax return has been lodged. Indexation is applied to the loans on June 1, before tax returns are lodged. Current and former students were hit with a 7.8% interest rate last year, the biggest increase in 30 years. Politicians have called for a freeze on student debts or for indexation to be tied to the long-term government bond rate when it is lower than the consumer price index. Seizing Russia's frozen $300 billion is legal, urgent and right. Bloomberg. An open letter will be delivered to the UN next week by a group of international lawyers, including Philip Zelikow of Stanford University, urging the confiscation of Russian assets as reparations for war crimes committed during the invasion of Ukraine. The International Law Commission has published guidelines that are well suited to the situation, the letter will argue. The monetary reparations could be used to rebuild Ukraine and to fund its military. Even voters in independent-minded Maine are taking sides in a polarized nation. Associated Press. The state of Maine's long-cherished reputation for political independence is being threatened by the nation's polarized politics, with more and more of its voters feeling pressured to take sides. The shift, reflected in new voter registration numbers and an increasingly pugilistic political environment, has nudged an electorate with a well-earned reputation for pragmatic moderation further into the political fray. So-called independents, or unenrolled voters, have gone from the state's largest voting bloc to trailing both major parties in just 4 years. U.S. to confront Trump-driven political turmoil at the Munich Security Conference. Associated Press. The Munich Security Conference, an annual event that traditionally focuses on the U.S.-led post-World War II international order, will this year be overshadowed by concerns about the U.S.'s ability to defend European allies and provide military assistance to Ukraine. Former President Donald Trump's threat not to come to the defense of European allies in the event of an attack by Russia, along with concerns about American isolation over its support for Israel's war in Gaza, will dominate the conference. The event may be marked by fears of authoritarianism, appeasement, and anti-Semitism, rather than optimism for the future. The Jacob Elordi effect: why the boy from Nudgee College has become the internet's baby girl. ABC. Australian actor Jacob Elordi has become an internet sensation after starring in the film Saltburn. His good looks, charm, and role as Felix in the film have garnered him a large fan base, with fans even going so far as to create TikTok videos and memes about him. Elordi began his acting career at 19 in the Netflix rom-com The Kissing Booth and has since transitioned to more prestigious film roles. He has received critical acclaim for his performances, including a BAFTA Rising Star nomination. However, some critics are skeptical about Elordi's talent and see him as nothing more than a pretty face. They argue that he has yet to prove himself as a serious actor and that his roles have relied heavily on his looks. Nevertheless, Elordi has embraced his internet fame and even played along with the meme culture surrounding him. He has also gained attention for his fashion sense, which is seen as a new type of gentle, suave masculinity. Despite the skepticism, Elordi has a bright career ahead of him and is set to star in upcoming films with esteemed directors such as Paul Schrader and Guillermo del Toro. MIT suspends student group that protested against Israel's military campaign in Gaza. Associated Press. The president of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, has suspended a student group, Coalition Against Apartheid, CAA, for holding an unauthorized demonstration against Israel's military campaign in Gaza. The group has received a letter advising that its privileges as a student group will be suspended. This means that it will not get any funding, will not be able to use MIT facilities, and will not be able to hold any demonstrations on campus. The CAA responded by protesting against their suspension and calling MIT's move an attack on their right to fight for Palestinian liberation. Warning signs mounted before Texas shooter entered church with her son, former mother-in-law says. The Toronto Star. The former mother-in-law of the woman who opened fire at a Houston megachurch tried for years to alert authorities and others, including church staff, about her ex-daughter-in-law's mental health struggles, she said Wednesday. But Wally Carranza said nothing came of her actions. Carranza said she believes systemic failures as well as lax gun laws ultimately led to Sunday's shooting at celebrity pastor Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church, in which Janesse Moreno entered the church with her 7-year-old son and opened fire in a hallway. 2 people were wounded in the shooting, including Moreno's son, who was shot in the head. Moreno was gunned down by security officers she exchanged gunfire with. 50 President's Day trivia questions and answers to test your executive knowledge. Yahoo! In honor of President's Day, an article published on Today.com provides a list of trivia questions about U.S. presidents and the White House. The article covers a range of topics, from the number of rooms in the White House to the names of the first cats to live there. The questions also cover historical events such as the 1929 stock market crash and the Teapot Dome scandal. Some questions ask about the personal lives of the presidents, such as which president had a 1-lane bowling alley built in the White House and which president was a licensed bartender. The article also asks about the first woman to run for U.S. president, and the first and only independent candidate to be elected to office. The article provides the answers to each question at the end, along with brief explanations of the significance of each answer. Young scores 21, Reese adds double-double, Maryland pulls away in second half to beat Iowa 78-66. Associated Press. Maryland defeated Iowa 78-66 in a Big Ten matchup on Wednesday night. Maryland used a 21-6 run in the second half to take control of the game and secure the win. Yamir Young led Maryland with 21 points, while Julian Reese contributed 16 points and 13 rebounds. Peyton Sandfort scored 19 points for Iowa. Thursday's time schedule. Associated Press. The article provides a schedule of upcoming NBA, NHL, and college basketball games. It lists the teams that will be playing and the times of the games. No additional information or analysis is provided. Why Cambodia needs to incorporate more women into its foreign policy process. Diplomat. Cambodia is struggling with gender equality in its foreign policy institutions, with men outnumbering women in decision-making roles. In 2021, Cambodia ranked 121st out of 156 countries in the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report, with only 21.6% of members of parliament and 9.4% of ministers being women, while 38.65% of the staff at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were female. The majority of senior roles were occupied by men. Similar slow progress towards gender equity has been seen in other Southeast Asian countries, such as Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. The exclusion of women from the foreign policy arena perpetuates gender inequality and risks overlooking critical issues and potential inclusive global solutions. The lack of female participation in foreign diplomacy in Cambodia is due to historical context and cultural norms that have shaped women's roles in society. However, research has shown that when women are included in high-level international affairs, they contribute to overwhelmingly positive results. Women in these positions are flexible, analytical, great communicators and negotiators, and capable of promoting dialogue and trust. Gender equity in diplomacy is essential for achieving the best foreign policy outcomes and creating a more just world where everyone has a voice. Free time worth more than money, China's youth lie flat as economy slows. South China Morning Post. Amid a struggling economy and record-high youth joblessness, many young Chinese are choosing to lie flat, working just enough to afford to spend their time on what they enjoy. The term lying flat is used to describe people who opt out of traditional corporate jobs to focus on their well-being and personal interests. The youth jobless rate in China rose to a record high of 21.3% in June, and surveys show that Generation Z, born between 1995 and 2010, is the most pessimistic age group in the country. This presents a challenge for policymakers aiming to pacify this generation. Japan slips to world's fourth largest economy, behind US, China and Germany. South China Morning Post. Japan has fallen behind Germany to become the world's fourth largest economy, according to government data. Analysts say the figures reflect Japan's declining competitiveness and productivity as the population ages and has fewer children. Japan was previously the second largest economy behind the US until China's economy grew in 2010. The International Monetary Fund had previously forecasted Japan's fall to fourth. Comparisons among economies are based on nominal GDP and do not reflect different national conditions. Japan's nominal GDP totaled $4.2 trillion last year, while Germany's was $4.4 trillion. Edmonton City Council sends public spaces bylaw back to city staff for revisions after lengthy debate. CBC. A proposed bylaw for public spaces in Edmonton is being sent back to city staff for revisions and further research. The proposed bylaw, which includes rules on panhandling, harassment, and temporary shelters in public places, received criticism from many who spoke at a city council meeting. Some people argued that imposing fines for drug use would only displace drug use to other areas of the city and increase the risk of overdose. Others, including representatives from the Edmonton business community, supported the bylaw, saying that drug use in public spaces can make people feel unsafe and deter them from visiting certain areas. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your sixth doctor speaking, coming to you from the 6th Degree world. Today, we have a diverse range of news stories, from scientific breakthroughs to political debates and even some trivia to test your knowledge. So, buckle up and get ready for a wild ride. First up, we have the passing of British pathologist Anthony Epstein. At the age of 102, Epstein leaves behind a legacy of groundbreaking research into the Epstein-Barr virus. His work in isolating the virus paved the way for further studies into viral triggers for various cancers and diseases. Although there is currently no vaccine for Epstein-Barr, trials are underway. It's incredible to see how one person's dedication and curiosity can lead to such significant advancements in our understanding of diseases. Next, we have politicians in Australia calling for changes to the student loan repayment system. They argue that the current system is unfair, with repayments being taken from every payslip, and the overall debt not changing until after a tax return has been lodged. The high interest rates and indexation applied to the loans have also caused concern. It's important to address these issues and ensure that education remains accessible and affordable for all. In international news, a group of international lawyers is urging the confiscation of Russian assets as reparations for war crimes committed during the invasion of Ukraine. This is a bold move that could potentially help rebuild Ukraine and fund its military. It's a reminder that justice must be served, and those responsible for atrocities should be held accountable. Moving on to the political landscape in Maine, we see the state's reputation for independence being threatened by the nation's polarized politics. More and more voters feel pressured to take sides, pushing the state further into the political fray. It's a shame to see the erosion of independent thinking, but it's a reflection of the larger divisions we see in our society today. Shifting gears, we turn to the Munich Security Conference, where the focus this year will be on the US's ability to defend European allies and provide military assistance to Ukraine. Former President Donald Trump's statements regarding defense commitments and America's support for Israel's actions in Gaza have raised concerns. It's a challenging time for international relations, and the conference will undoubtedly be marked by tough discussions and fears about the rise of authoritarianism. Now, let's take a break from serious news and talk about Australian actor Jacob Elordi, who has become an internet sensation. With his good looks and charm, Elordi has captured the hearts of many fans, leading to a large following on social media. While some critics question his acting abilities, there's no denying that he has become a rising star in the industry. Let's hope he continues to impress us with his talent and not just his looks. In academia, the president of MIT has suspended a student group, Coalition Against Apartheid, for holding an unauthorized demonstration against Israel's military campaign in Gaza. The decision has sparked protests and accusations of suppressing the group's right to fight for Palestinian liberation. It's a complex issue that highlights the importance of free speech and the challenges universities face in balancing diverse perspectives. On a more somber note, we have the tragic story of the Houston megachurch shooting. The former mother-in-law of the shooter tried for years to alert authorities about her ex-daughter-in-law's mental health struggles, but her efforts were in vain. This tragedy once again raises questions about mental health support and the need for stricter gun control laws. It's a heartbreaking reminder of the consequences of inaction. Now, let's lighten the mood with some trivia. In honor of President's Day, we have a list of questions about US presidents and the White House. From historical events to personal tidbits, these questions will put your knowledge to the test. It's a fun way to learn more about our country's leaders and the history of the presidency. In the world of sports, Maryland defeated Iowa in a Big Ten matchup. Yamir Young led the way with 21 points, helping his team secure the win. It's always exciting to see the passion and skill on display in these games, and it's a reminder of the joy that sports can bring. Lastly, we have a story from Cambodia, where gender equality in foreign policy institutions is a pressing issue. With men outnumbering women in decision-making roles, there is a need for more inclusion and representation. Research has shown that when women are included in high-level international affairs, positive results follow. It's essential to create a more just and inclusive world where everyone's voice is heard. Well, that's all the news for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this whirlwind tour of the latest stories from around the world. Now, it's your turn to join the discussion. What are your thoughts on these topics? Do you have any questions or insights to share? Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the 6-degree world. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.